I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. Arlen Ridge adjusted his tie in the hallway mirror, smoothing down the navy silk with practiced fingers. The reflection showed a man of 39 with sharp features and calculating eyes. Not handsome, exactly, but composed. Put together. A man who'd clawed his way up from nothing to something respectable. He checked his watch 6:42 p.m., 18 minutes before Nadine's friends would arrive. The dining room table gleamed with the good china wedding gifts they rarely used. He'd spent the afternoon preparing, rushing from work to pick up the food from Bellini's, the Italian place everyone raved about. The price had made him wince, but he'd used his quarterly bonus. Worth it to see Nadine smile. Those moments came less frequently these days. From the kitchen came the clink of ice in a glass. Nadine appeared in the doorway, drink in hand. Her blonde hair fell in careful waves over bare shoulders, her dress a deep burgundy that hugged her figure. "You're still wearing that tie." Her voice carried a note of disappointment that had become familiar over their 11 years of marriage. Arlen's fingers instinctively rose to the knot. "What's wrong with it?" "Nothing if you're going for middle management forever." She took a sip of her drink. "May and Colt are coming. You could try to impress for once." The words stung more than they should have after all this time. He'd heard variations on this theme throughout their marriage. You could try harder. You could be more. You could be different. "The food is ready," he said, changing the subject. "I got the mushroom ravioli you like." Nadine moved to the table, lifting one of the foil containers he'd arranged on serving platters. "You couldn't have transferred it properly? It still looks like takeout." "I thought." "Never mind. May always brings something elaborate anyway." She sighed. "Can you at least open some wine?" "The Cabernet, not that cheap Merlot." Arlen nodded, heading to the wine rack. He'd bought the Cabernet last month specifically for occasions like this. $75 a bottle. Another small extravagance that would go unnoticed. The doorbell rang at 7:03. Nadine's eyes lit up in a way they never did for him anymore. "They're here." She practically glided to the door. Voices filled the entryway, May's dramatic laugh, Colt's smooth baritone. Arlen took a deep breath and stepped into the role he'd play tonight, the accommodating husband. May Ellis swept in first, all perfume and jangling bracelets. At 35, she maintained the energy of someone a decade younger, her dark hair cut in an expensive bob that framed sharp features. She thrust a bottle of wine at Arlen without looking at him. "Arlen, be a dear and openness." It's a 2018 Barolo, absolutely divine. Behind her came Colt Masters, 6-foot-something of tailored suit and practiced charm. His handshake was firm, his smile never reaching his eyes. "Rich, still keeping the home fires burning, I see." The comment carried an edge that made Arlen's jaw tighten. "Good to see you too, Colt." Arlen forced a smile. Nadine was already leading them to the sitting room, her voice rising with excitement. "You won't believe what happened at the Hendersons' party." Arlen turned to the kitchen, opening May's wine and arranging glasses on a tray. When he brought them out, the three were huddled on the sofa, laughing at something Colt had said. And then he asked if she'd had work done. May finished, sending Nadine into peals of laughter. Arlen set down the tray. "Wine's ready. Dinner in 5. Nadine glanced up. "We just started catching up, Arlen. Give us a minute." That minute stretched to 30. Arlen checked the food, keeping it warm. He heard snippets from the other room. "Taking the family to Bermuda next month. The new series director practically begged me. Said it's the most exclusive address in the county." Finally, he announced dinner was ready. They moved to the table, Nadine and her friends still deep in conversation about people Arlen barely knew. "This looks homey," May said, eyeing the spread. "Bellini's," Arlen offered. "Best Italian in Lexington." Colt smirked. "If you haven't tried Vincenzo's in Louisville, you can't really make that claim." Arlen served the food while they talked. He tried to join the conversation twice, once about a supply chain innovation at work, once about a book he'd read, but both attempts withered under their blank stares. "More wine?" he asked instead. "Yes, and maybe grab another bottle," Nadine said without looking at him. As he poured, May launched into a story about her husband's promotion. And just like that, executive level. The bonus alone was enough for the lake house down payment. Some men know how to rise to the occasion, Colt added, his eyes flicking to Arlen. Nadine sighed. Well, we can't all be so lucky. She gestured around their modest dining room with its IKEA furniture and practical finishes. Some of us have to settle for stability. Arlen felt something crack inside him, a hairline fracture in the foundation of his patience. He'd built this life from nothing. His childhood memories were of empty refrigerators and eviction notices, of working after school while his classmates played sports. He'd put himself through college, built a career, paid off Nadine's family's debts when they'd fallen on hard times. More ravioli, he offered, his voice steady despite the storm building inside. God, no, May laughed. Carbs after 40? Suicide mission. I'll take some. Colt held out his plate. Some of us still have the metabolism of our college days. College days, when Colt and Nadine had dated briefly before Arlen had met her. A fact Colt never let him forget. Arlen served him, then moved to clear some plates. As he reached for Nadine's, she looked up at their guests with a theatrical sigh. Sometimes I think Arlen missed his calling as a waiter. Always hovering, always serving. She glanced at him, a mean spark in her eyes. Even homeless people have more worth than you. The table erupted in laughter. Arlen froze. The plate in his hand suddenly felt like it weighed 100 pounds. Nadine's words echoed in his head. Not just the words themselves, but the casual cruelty behind them. The ease with which she'd weaponized his service. The laughter of people who'd never known what it was to fear poverty, to fight for every opportunity. That he set the plate down carefully, precisely. Arlen, it was a joke. Nadine's voice held more irritation than apology. Without a word, Arlen walked out of the dining room. He grabbed his car keys from the hook by the door, stepped outside into the cool evening air, and closed the door behind him, but he didn't slam it. There was no dramatic exit, just a quiet click of the latch. Inside his car, he sat motionless for a full minute. Then he started the engine and drove away from the house he'd worked so hard to provide that he didn't look back. Room 118 of the Pinewood Motel smelled of industrial cleaner and decades of ingrained cigarette smoke, despite the faded no smoking sign on the door. Arlen sat on the edge of the bed, the springs creaking under his weight, and slowly twisted the gold band off his finger. The ring made a dull thud as he set it on the nightstand. After checking in with cash, he turned off his phone. Only once, to send a brief text to his boss explaining he needed a few personal days. The response had been immediate. Take what you need. Your projects are covered. 11 years of marriage. 11 years of being the stable one. The provider, the one who made sure bills were paid and future secured. And in a single sentence, Nadine had revealed what she truly thought of him. Even homeless people have more worth than you. The words kept repeating themselves, each iteration cutting deeper. But what hurt more was realizing this wasn't new. This was just the first time she'd said it so bluntly, in front of others. Arlen opened his laptop and methodically began cutting ties. He blocked Nadine on his phone, email, and all social media. Then he did the same with May, Colt, and the entire circle of friends who'd sat at that table. With each click, he felt something liberating in the severance. Next, he opened his banking app. He didn't clean out their joint account. That would be legally problematic, but he stopped the automatic transfers from his personal account that had been supplementing it for years. His name was on the mortgage, so he scheduled that payment. Everything else, Nadine would need to handle. The bed springs creaked again as he lay back, staring at the water stains on the ceiling. Memories surfaced unbidden that he remembered meeting Nadine 12 years ago at a mutual friend's barbecue. She'd been vibrant, ambitious, working in an art gallery, and dreaming of opening her own someday. He'd been drawn to her energy, her passion. When her father's investment went bad 6 months into their relationship, wiping out the family's savings and putting them in debt, Arlen had stepped in without hesitation. His promotion had come at the right time, and he'd offered to help. The gratitude had been overwhelming at first, then expected, then forgotten. They'd married quickly after that. He'd paid off the last of her family's debts as a wedding gift to her parents. Nadine had cried, called him her hero. When had that changed? When had his stability become boring? When had his reliability become worthy of mockery? Arlen rose from the bed and moved to the small window overlooking the parking lot. His sensible sedan sat beneath the yellow glow of a security light. The car he'd researched for safety and fuel efficiency. The car Nadine had called an accountant's midlife crisis when he'd brought it home. "I will not forgive," he whispered to the empty room. "I will not forget." The next morning, he drove. No destination, just movement. The Kentucky countryside rolled past his windows, farms, small towns, stretches of woodland. He stopped for coffee at a gas station, for lunch at a roadside diner. He spoke only when necessary. 3 days passed this way. Driving, thinking, sleeping in anonymous motels. On the 4th day, he called his company's HR department and arranged to work remotely for a while. "Family emergency," he said simply. On the 5th day, he found himself at the edge of a creek, watching water flow over stones. Each drop moving forward, never back. Nature didn't second-guess itself. Why should he? The Bluegrass Diner sat just off Route 60, its neon sign buzzing faintly in the afternoon sun. Arlen had discovered it during his aimless drives, and something about its worn vinyl booze and unpretentious menu had drawn him back several times. It reminded him of places from his childhood, rare treats, when his mother had scraped together enough for a meal out. Before she'd gotten sick. Before everything had changed. Back again. Mira Fox slid a mug of coffee across the counter as Arlen took his usual spot. "Beginning to think you live here." Arlen managed a small smile. Better company than some places. At 29, Mira had the efficient movements of someone who'd been waiting tables for years. Dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, eyes quick and observant. A small tattoo of a fox peeked out from her wrist as she poured the coffee. "Haven't seen you at the usual lunch spot downtown lately," she noted. "Taking time off?" The usual lunch spot was a small cafe near his office building. Arlen had been a regular for years, and Mira had worked there before moving to this diner 6 months ago for better hours. They developed the casual friendship of regular customer and server, nothing deep, just familiar faces and occasional conversation. "Something like that," Arlen replied, opening the laminated menu he already knew by heart. Mira studied him for a moment. "You're different." "How so?" "Quieter. And you're not wearing your ring." Arlen's eyes flicked to his bare finger. He shouldn't have been surprised she'd noticed. Mira noticed everything that made her good at her job. "Marriage ended," he said simply. "I'm sorry." "Don't be." She nodded, accepting his terseness. "The usual?" "Turkey club, no mayo, please." As she turned to put in his order, Arlen surprised himself by adding, "How's your son?" Mira turned back. "Eli? He's good. Starting 3rd grade in the fall." There was pride in her voice, mixed with something wistful. "Smart kid. Too smart for his own good sometimes." "You mentioned he likes cooking." "Obsessed. Saves cooking videos on my phone. Keeps begging me to let him try recipes." She laughed. "My apartment kitchen is tiny, but we make it work." Arlen remembered something she'd told him months ago, back at the cafe downtown. "You had an idea once." "A food truck?" Myra's eyebrows rose in surprise. "You remembered that? You said rural areas don't have many food options. That a mobile business could fill the gap." "Just a pipe dream." She shrugged. "Startup costs alone would take years to save for. And I don't know the first thing about running a business." Something stirred in Arlen's mind, the first spark of interest he'd felt in days. "I do." "What?" "Know about running a business. I'm a supply chain consultant. I optimize systems, reduce costs, implement efficient processes." Mira leaned against the counter. "Good for you. I could help." The words came out before he'd fully formed the thought. "With the food truck idea, if you were serious." She laughed, a short, surprised sound. "I work 2 jobs to keep my son in decent clothes and our apartment paid for. Serious doesn't factor into dreams right now." Arlen nodded, backing off. "Just thought I'd offer." Mira disappeared to tend to other customers. When she returned with his food, her expression had shifted. "Why would you want to help me? You barely know me." Arlen considered the question. The truth was layered and complex, part spite, part need for purpose, part genuine belief in her idea. "I need a change," he said finally, "and your idea is good. Rural food deserts are a real problem. Mobile services are an efficient solution." "You talk like a consultant," she said, but without mockery. It's what I am. He took a bite of his sandwich. Think about it. No pressure. As he ate, Arlen's mind began working in a way it hadn't since that night at the dinner table. Logistics, costs, market analysis. The foundations of a plan, not just for a business, but for himself. That he pulled out his phone and opened the Notes app. Began typing. Short-term. Find permanent housing. Legal consultation divorce. Asset protection. He paused, then added. Long-term. New business venture. Relocate. After paying his bill, he left his business card with a generous tip. On the back, he'd written, "The offer stands. A partnership, not charity." Driving back to his motel, Arlen felt something he hadn't expected, a sense of direction forming from the chaos. This wouldn't just be about rebuilding that IT would be about taking back what was his and ensuring those who had laughed would no longer find anything amusing. "Mr. Ridge, your signature here and here." The attorney, a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and precise movements, pointed to the marked lines on the divorce papers. 3 months had passed since that night. 3 months in which Arlen had spoken to Nadine exactly once, a terse phone call, where he'd stated his intention to divorce and nothing more. The conference room in the law offices of Hartman and Associates overlooked downtown Lexington. Arlen signed the papers with calm deliberation. His new Mont Blanc pen, a small luxury he'd allowed himself. One of several changes. "Your wife's attorney will receive these today," the lawyer continued. "Given the documentation we've provided regarding financial contributions and the circumstances of your separation, I anticipate minimal resistance to the terms." The documentation included bank records showing how Arlen had supported Nadine and her family for years. It also included a recording from that fateful dinner, captured accidentally by his smartwatch when he'd been adjusting settings earlier that day and never stopped the recording function. The audio quality wasn't perfect, but Nadine's words and the subsequent laughter came through with painful clarity. "And the accounts?" Arlen asked. "Already done. The joint account is frozen pending divorce proceedings as requested. The car lease in her name has been flagged for non-renewal. All automatic payments from your personal accounts have been discontinued." Arlen nodded. "Thank you, Ms. Hartman. I should warn you," the attorney began, "that she'll be angry? That's the point." Outside, the October air carried the first hints of autumn. Arlen buttoned his new charcoal overcoat, another carefully chosen upgrade. His phone buzzed with a text from Mira. "Health inspector approved. We're officially licensed." "Still can't believe this is happening." A rare smile crossed his face as he typed back. "Never doubted it." Meeting the wrap designer at 3. Opinions on the logo. The past 3 months had transformed more than just his marital status. Arlen now rented a clean, minimalist apartment in a secure building across town. He maintained his remote work arrangement with his consulting firm, but reduced his hours to part-time enough to maintain his income while freeing up time for the new venture. Foxtrail Eats had moved from concept to reality with remarkable speed. Arlen had used $75,000 of his savings as startup capital and investment, not a gift, with clear terms and a contract that protected both parties. Mira had initially balked at the amount. "I can't pay that back," she protested in his temporary apartment, staring at the business plan he'd drafted. "You're not taking on debt," he'd explained. "I'm buying a stake in a business I believe will succeed. If it fails, I lose my investment. That's how partnerships work." The food truck itself had been purchased secondhand and renovated. Arlen had handled permits, licensing, equipment sourcing, and financial projections. Mira had developed menus, hired a part-time helper, and networked with local farmers for ingredients. Her cooking turned out to be exceptional. Simple but flavorful, drawing on her mixed heritage and childhood spent between Kentucky and New Mexico. The concept, bringing diverse, fresh food to rural communities on a rotating schedule, filled a genuine need. Arlen drove to the graphic designer studio, reviewing mental checklists. The official launch was set for next week. They'd start with 3 counties, expanding based on response. The business model was solid, the margins workable. This wasn't just distraction from his collapsed marriage. This was something built from its ashes. Across town, Nadine Ridge stared at the legal notice in her hands, her expression shifting from confusion to disbelief to rage. The notice detailed the frozen joint account, the cessation of automatic payments for utilities and credit cards, and the terms Arlen was seeking in the divorce. Terms that offered her nothing but her personal possessions and a small cash settlement that wouldn't last 6 months. "He can't do this," she whispered to her empty kitchen. The home that had once seemed modest now loomed as a burden. The mortgage payment had bounced this month, the first time in their 11 years there. Nadine reached for her phone, ready to unleash her fury in a text. But Arlen's number was still blocked on his end. Her emails bounced back. Her messages on social media went undelivered. 3 months of silence had convinced her he was simply retreating, licking his wounds, perhaps staying with a coworker. She told May and Colt that he was taking some space after a little disagreement. They'd laughed it off, assuring her he'd return when he ran out of options. Instead, he'd vanished. His clothes gone from the closets, personal items missing from drawers. His car no longer parked at his office building. The only communication had been a brief call where he'd stated, "I'm filing for divorce. My attorney will contact yours." Then silence. The tax notice that had arrived last week had been the first indication of real trouble. An unpaid liability from 2 years ago, something Arlen had always handled. The amount made her stomach clench. Now this, Nadine grabbed her keys. She needed advice, support. She needed her friends. May Ellis's home in the exclusive Heartland neighborhood featured the kind of professionally designed interior that appeared in regional magazines. Everything coordinated, nothing out of place, including the expression of practice concern May wore as Nadine explained her situation. "Darling, how awful," May said, passing Nadine a glass of white wine. "But surely there's some mistake? Arlen always struck me as so responsible." "There's no mistake. He's punishing me because of that stupid joke at dinner." Nadine's hands trembled slightly. "You were there. It wasn't even that bad." May's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose slightly. "The homeless comment, it was just a joke. We all laughed." "Well," May sipped her wine. "Men can be so sensitive sometimes." "I need help, May. Maybe a loan until this gets sorted out. Just to cover the mortgage and car payment this month." Something cooled in May's gaze. "Oh, Nadine, you know Thomas and I are dealing with the lake house renovations right now. Everything's tied up in that, just until the divorce is finalized. I'm sure Arlen will have to pay alimony. He makes 3 times what I do at the gallery. Have you talked to Colt? I'm sure he'd be more willing to help." The emphasis on the last word made Nadine's cheeks burn. "I don't want to ask Colt." "Well, perhaps you should." May set down her glass. "I hate to cut this short, but I have the charity committee coming over in 30 minutes. Driving away from May's perfect house, Nadine felt the first real stab of fear. Her credit cards were maxed out. The gallery job barely covered groceries and utilities. And now, it seemed her friend's circle might be as fragile as her financial situation. Nadine sat across from the IRS agent, a woman whose neutral expression revealed nothing as she reviewed the documentation. "So as you can see," Nadine finished, "my husband always handled the taxes. I had no idea there was an outstanding liability." The agent her nameplate read, Ms. Ortiz, looked up from the file. "Mrs. Ridge, the notices for this liability have been sent to your address for the past 18 months. The first 6 were warnings. The last 12 have been collection notices. My husband must have intercepted them. The most recent ones were sent certified mail requiring signature. You signed for 3 of them." Ms. Ortiz turned the file, revealing Nadine's familiar scrawl on receipt forms. I don't remember. Mrs. Ridge, your joint tax liability is $28,476, including penalties and interest. Since you filed jointly, you're both responsible regardless of who earned the income. But I didn't earn it. That was from his consulting bonus. As I said, joint filing means joint liability. Now, given your current financial situation, you may qualify for a payment plan. Let's discuss your options." 40 minutes later, Nadine emerged from the federal building with a payment agreement that would take $750 from her monthly budget for the next 4 years. Money she didn't have. Her phone buzzed with a text from Colt. "Drinks tonight? Need to talk to you about something." She hesitated, then replied, "Sure. Usual place at 7. The bar was upscale enough to make Nadine feel underdressed in her work clothes, but she hadn't had time to go home and change after her shift at the gallery. Colt, as always, looked impeccable in a tailored blazer and designer jeans, his salt and pepper hair artfully tousled. "You look tired," he said by way of greeting, signaling the bartender for 2 martinis. "Charming as ever, Colt." Nadine managed a smile. "What did you want to talk about?" "Actually, I heard you might need some help." He slid a martini toward her. "Financial help." Nadine stiffened. "Who told you that?" "Does it matter?" "Small circles, D. We all talk." The old nickname from their college days made her stomach flutter despite everything. Colt had been her first serious boyfriend, passionate, volatile, exciting. They'd broken up when he graduated and taken a job across the country. By the time he'd returned to Lexington years later, she'd been married to Arlen. "May has a big mouth," Nadine muttered. "She's worried about you." "We all are." "Arlen going off the grid like that. Not like him. He's punishing me." Colt sipped his drink. "For what?" "A stupid joke at dinner. You were there." "The homeless comment." Colt shrugged. "Seemed pretty harsh, even for you." "Et tu, brute." Nadine glared. "I didn't expect judgment from you of all people." "Not judging, just observing." He studied her over the rim of his glass. "So what's your plan?" "I don't know. The gallery barely pays enough for groceries. The mortgage is due next week. I've got this tax payment plan now." She took a large swallow of her martini. "I might have to sell the house. I might have a better option." Colt's voice dropped lower. "I'm buying a property in Chevy Chase. Old Victorian, good bones. Going to renovate it into luxury condos." "Good for you." "I need a project manager. Someone with taste, an eye for design. Someone who can work with contractors, make decisions on finishes." Nadine blinked. "You're offering me a job?" "I'm offering you an opportunity." His hand found hers on the bar. "We always worked well together, D. In all sorts of ways." The implication hung in the air between them. "Is the job contingent on the other ways?" she asked quietly. Colt smiled, not bothering to deny it. "Let's call it a package deal. You get a salary that solves your immediate problems. I get a project manager who's motivated to succeed. We both get benefits." Nadine stared at their hands on the bar. A month ago, she would have pulled away indignantly. Now, with financial ruin looming, the line between pride and practicality was blurring. "I need to think about it." "Don't think too long." Colt finished his drink. Opportunity, like martinis, is best when fresh. In her quiet house that night, Nadine opened her laptop and did something she'd been avoiding for weeks. She searched for Arlen online. His company profile was unchanged. LinkedIn showed him still employed at the same consulting firm. But his personal social media accounts had vanished, deleted, or set to privacy settings that blocked her completely. Without conscious thought, she found herself typing Fox Trail into the search bar. The name had appeared in her social media feed earlier that day, a promoted post about a new food truck business, and something about the simple logo had caught her eye. The search returned several results, the top one being an Instagram account at Fox Trail Eats. The profile showed a sleek food truck with a stylized fox paw print logo. "Bringing fresh, diverse food to Kentucky's rural communities," read the bio. Nadine scrolled through the photos, close-ups of appetizing meals, snapshots of smiling customers in small towns she barely recognized, shots of the truck at various locations. And then she saw it. A photo from what appeared to be a health inspection. In the background, barely in frame but unmistakable, Arlen. His back was to the camera, but she'd know that posture, that haircut, the set of those shoulders anywhere. The caption read, "Passed with flying colors. Thanks to our amazing team for making it happen." Nadine's finger hovered over the screen. The Arlen she knew had no interest in food service. His idea of cooking was ordering takeout. Yet here he was, apparently involved with a food truck business. She clicked on other photos, scanning backgrounds and captions for more glimpses of him. Nothing. In fact, he wasn't tagged or mentioned anywhere on the account. The account owner was listed as Mira Fox, chef/owner. The profile picture showed a young woman with dark hair and a confident smile. Attractive in an unpretentious way. Nadine clicked on the woman's profile link. Most of it was private, but public photos showed her with a young boy, presumably her son, and various food-related posts. Nothing with Arlen. A coincidence? Maybe he'd just been consulting for them. That would make sense, but a nagging feeling persisted as she closed the laptop. Arlen had never been impulsive. Everything he did was calculated, planned. If he was involved with this business, it wasn't by chance. And if he found a new path so quickly after leaving, what did that say about their marriage? About her. For the first time since his departure, Nadine felt something beyond anger or inconvenience. She felt replaced. The morning sun gleamed off the Foxtrail Eats food truck as Arlen helped Mira set up for their biggest event yet. The Kentucky Farm Bureau's Harvest Festival had invited them as one of 10 featured food vendors, and local news was covering the event. Nervous? Arlen asked, noting Myra's rapid movements as she organized supplies. Terrified, she admitted. What if we run out of food? What if nobody likes it? What if we're the only truck with no line? None of that will happen. Arlen checked the order list he'd meticulously prepared. We have enough inventory for 1.5 times our projected sales. Your food consistently gets 5-star reviews. And based on social media response to the festival announcement, we'll have customers waiting before we open. Mira smiled despite her anxiety. Always the consultant. Always right, he countered with a hint of a smile. Their working relationship had evolved over the past months into something approaching friendship. Arlen kept his personal life separate. Mira knew he was going through a divorce, but little beyond that. She respected his privacy, focusing instead on the business they were building, and it was working. 3 months in, Foxtrail Eats had established regular routes through 6 rural counties, built a loyal customer base, and begun turning a modest profit ahead of projections. Arlen checked his watch. 30 minutes to opening. I'll handle the register if you want to do final prep. You sure? You usually stay in the background. I'll manage. In truth, Arlen had deliberately maintained a low profile with the business. He handled logistics, finances, and strategy, but stayed away from customer-facing roles when possible. Partly to give Mira the spotlight she deserved as the talent behind the operation, partly to avoid being recognized by anyone from his old life. Today, though, the festival crowds made all hands necessary. The event opened with a surge of visitors. By noon, Foxtrail Eats had a consistent line of customers eager to try Myra's signature dishes: green chili pork stew, buttermilk biscuits with bourbon maple butter, and spiced sweet potato fries that had become their most requested item. Arlen worked the register with quiet efficiency while Mira and her newly hired assistant, Damon, handled the cooking. Between orders, he noticed a local news crew moving between food trucks, interviewing vendors and customers. Heads up, he murmured to Mira during a brief lull. Channel 9 heading this way. She glanced up, eyes widening. What do I say? The truth. How we're bringing diverse food options to underserved communities. How response has exceeded expectations. Keep it simple. The reporter, a woman in her 30s with a cameraman in tow, approached their window. Hi there. I'm Eliza Chun from WKYT. Mind if we ask a few questions about your food truck for our festival coverage? Mira wiped her hands on her apron. Sure, of course. Great. Let's start with who you are and what makes Foxtrail Eats special. As Mira answered questions with growing confidence, Arlen stepped back from the register, moving to the rear of the truck where he wouldn't be in frame. He listened with quiet pride as she articulated their business model and vision. And what inspired you to start this venture? The reporter asked. Honestly, it was my business partner's belief in the concept, Mira replied. I'd had the idea for years, but he saw the potential and made it happen. And where is this mystery partner? Arlen tensed. Behind the scenes, as usual, Mira laughed. He handles the business side, so I can focus on the food. The reporter seemed satisfied with that answer and moved on to asking about specific menu items. After trying the sweet potato fries, she declared them festival-worthy and wrapped up the interview. That wasn't so bad, Mira said as the news crew moved to the next truck. Think we'll make the cut for the broadcast? Definitely. Arlen nodded. You were natural on camera. They returned to serving customers, the rhythm of orders filling the afternoon. As the festival wound down, Myra's phone buzzed repeatedly with notification sounds. What's going on? She asked, checking the screen between orders. Our Instagram followers just jumped by like 300 people in the last hour. Arlen frowned. The news piece can't have aired yet. It's something else. She scrolled through notifications. Someone took a photo of us at the health inspection last week and posted it on one of those local food blogs. They're calling you the mystery man behind Foxtrail's success. It's getting shared like crazy. What photo? Arlen moved to look over her shoulder. There was a candid shot taken during their health inspection, showing Mira smiling at the camera while Arlen stood in the background, his profile clearly visible as he reviewed paperwork with the inspector. The caption read, "Who is Foxtrail Eats Secret Weapon?" The mystery man behind Lexington's hottest new food concept has Kentucky foodies intrigued. From empty food deserts to thriving mobile eatery, in just months, what's the story? Hashtag Kentucky foodie, hashtag food truck success. Arlen felt a cold knot form in his stomach. Can you get it taken down? Mira looked surprised. Why would we? This is great publicity. I prefer staying behind the scenes. I know, but she studied his face. Is this about your ex? Are you worried she'll see it? Arlen didn't answer, which was answer enough. Arlen. Myra's voice softened. Whatever happened in your marriage, you're building something good here. Something worth being proud of. Don't let her take that too. Her words hit with unexpected force. Was he still letting Nadine control his actions? Even now? Was staying hidden just another form of running away? Leave the post up, he said finally. But I'm still not doing interviews. Mira grinned. Deal. The man of mystery angle probably helps us anyway. People love a good story. As they packed up the truck at day's end, Arlen checked his own phone. Among the business-related notifications was an email from his divorce attorney. Final hearing scheduled for next Thursday at 10 a.m. Expect your wife's attendance. Have prepared evidence as discussed. Please confirm you'll be there. He typed a brief reply. I'll be there. It was time to face what he'd left behind. The courthouse corridor gleamed with harsh fluorescent light that made everything look slightly sickly. Arlen straightened his tie as he waited outside courtroom C, his attorney reviewing notes beside him. Remember, Ms. Hartman said quietly, stay calm no matter what. Let me do the talking unless directly addressed by the judge. Arlen nodded. He'd chosen his attire carefully for today, conservative dark suit, white shirt, subdued tie. Nothing flashy, nothing that suggested either wealth or hardship. Just a man handling necessary business. Movement at the far end of the corridor caught his attention. Nadine appeared, accompanied by a man Arlen recognized as Stanley Weber, a divorce attorney known for aggressive tactics. She wore a cream-colored dress that emphasized her slimness, her hair and makeup impeccable as always. Their eyes met across the distance. Arlen felt nothing, no anger, no longing, not even satisfaction at the flash of uncertainty that crossed her face. Just emptiness where emotion should be. She approached, her attorney slightly behind. Arlen. He nodded, but didn't speak. You could have answered my calls, she said, an edge to her voice. This silent treatment is childish. Ms. Hartman stepped forward smoothly. Mrs. Ridge, all communication should go through counsel at this point. I'm still his wife, Nadine snapped. For approximately 40 more minutes. Ms. Hartman replied with professional detachment. The courtroom doors opened, saving them from further interaction. Inside, the judge, a woman in her 60s with steel-rimmed glasses and an air of brisk efficiency, was already reviewing documents. Ridge versus Ridge, she announced. Final hearing for dissolution of marriage. Counselors, are your clients present and prepared to proceed? Both attorneys confirmed. The judge nodded and began the formal process of reviewing the divorce petition and proposed settlement. Weber, Nadine's attorney, rose first. Your Honor, my client contests the proposed division of assets. Mr. Ridge's offer provides insufficient support given the length of the marriage and my client's contributions to the household. What contributions would those be? Ms. Hartman asked when her turn came. Our filing details Mr. Ridge's financial records, showing he provided approximately 85% of household income throughout the marriage, paid off Mrs. Ridge's family's considerable debts, and maintained all major expenses. Marriage is more than financial, Your Honor, Weber countered. Mrs. Ridge supported her husband emotionally and socially, advancing his career through maintaining their home and social connections. Arlen almost laughed at that. Nadine had shown nothing but contempt for his career. The arguments continued, Weber painting Nadine as a devoted wife blindsided by abandonment, Hartman methodically presenting evidence of years of financial imbalance. Then Hartman played her trump card. Your Honor, I'd like to submit evidence regarding the circumstances of separation. She presented the audio recording enhanced by a forensic audio specialist to clarify the voices. The courtroom fell silent as Nadine's voice emerged from the speaker. Even homeless people have more worth than you. Followed by clear laughter from multiple people. Nadine's face drained of color. Weber leaned over, whispering urgently in her ear. The judge removed her glasses. Mrs. Ridge, is that your voice on the recording? Nadine swallowed. It was taken out of context, Your Honor. It was just a joke among friends. A joke, the judge repeated flatly. At your husband's expense, in your marital home, while he served dinner to your friends. It wasn't. I didn't mean. The judge held up a hand, silencing her. I've heard enough. The next 30 minutes proceeded with brutal efficiency. The judge approved Arlen's proposed settlement with minor adjustments, awarded no alimony, and ruled that each party would cover their own legal fees. This marriage is hereby dissolved. Court adjourned. The gavel came down with finality. Outside the courtroom, Nadine caught up to Arlen as he thanked his attorney. How could you? Her voice shook with anger, and something else hurt, perhaps. 11 years, and you record me? Use it against me like that. Arlen turned to face her. The first direct confrontation since that night. I didn't plan to record you, he said, his voice calm. My watch was recording from earlier in the day. I forgot to stop it. So what? This is divine justice. The universe exposing me. Her laugh held no humor. You go talk to me. Giving me a chance to apologize. Would you have? Really? She faltered. It was just a stupid comment. No, it wasn't. It was the truth slipping out. What you really think of me. What you've thought for years. That's not fair, isn't it? Tell me. Nadine, when was the last time you showed me any respect? Any appreciation? What was the last time you didn't mock my job, my car, my clothes, my interests? She had no answer. I paid your family's debts, he continued, his voice still steady. I covered your spending. I built the life you said you wanted. And you repaid me with contempt. Arlen, please. I can change. We could try again. He studied her face, the tears now forming, the desperation. Was it for him, or for the financial stability he represented? You didn't just kill love, he said finally. You mocked it while it bled. He turned and walked away, feeling her eyes on his back, but not looking back. It was done. Finally, completely done. I in the parking lot. He checked his phone. A text from Mira. Just got off the phone with Southern Living. They want to feature us in their Best of Kentucky issue next month. Call me when you can. For the first time in a very long time, Arlen smiled without reservation. Nadine's apartment in the Woodland Park complex was a far cry from the house she'd share with Arlen. One bedroom, generic beige carpeting, thin walls that let in the neighbors' arguments and music. But at $850 a month, it was all she could afford on her gallery salary. 6 months had passed since the divorce. 6 months of adjusting to a new financial reality. The house had sold quickly, but after the mortgage was paid, her share had barely covered moving expenses and outstanding debts. She turned down Colt's offer of employment. The strings attached had been too obvious, too degrading. He'd stopped calling after that, his interest apparently contingent on her compliance. May still invited her to lunch occasionally, but the dynamic had shifted. Without the house, the designer clothes, the connection to Arlen's stable income, Nadine had slipped several rungs down the social ladder. Charity lunches, May called them, though not to her face. Tonight, Nadine sat cross-legged on her bed, laptop open before her. A bottle of cheap Merlot, nothing like the wine she used to serve, sat half-empty beside her. On the screen, Instagram showed the latest post from at Foxtrail Eats. Exciting news. Foxtrail Eats is expanding to 3 new counties this summer. We're hiring additional staff and adding a second truck to meet demand. Thank you to our amazing customers for making this growth possible. The post had thousands of likes and hundreds of comments, all gushing with praise for the business that had become something of a regional sensation over the past months. Nadine took another swallow of wine and clicked on the profile. The business had exploded since that first local news feature. Southern Living had done a spread. Food and Wine had mentioned them in an article about innovative rural dining concepts. They've been featured on a regional PBS show about entrepreneurship. And through it all, Arlen had maintained his behind-the-scenes role, occasionally visible in photos, but never named or interviewed. The mystery partner, whose strategic brilliance had turned a simple food truck into a growing enterprise with plans for expansion. The same strategic brilliance he'd once applied to building their life together. The knock at her door startled her from her thoughts. Through the peephole, she saw Colt's expensive jacket, perfect hair, smug smile. She hesitated, then opened the door. "What are you doing here?" "Nice to see you too." He leaned against the doorframe, surveying her apartment with barely disguised disdain. "Cozy place. What do you want, Colt?" "May mentioned you've been having a rough time. Thought I'd check in." His eyes took in her worn sweatpants, the wine bottle visible on the bed. "I see the reports weren't exaggerated. If you came to gloat, mission accomplished." She started to close the door, but he stopped it with his hand. "I came to renew my offer. The development project is still happening. Positions still open, with the same strings attached. Call them what you want." He shrugged. "We both know you're drowning here, D. Pride's a luxury you can't afford anymore." Something snapped inside her. "Get out." "Excuse me." "Get out." She pushed against the door. "I'd rather drown than let you throw me your tainted lifeline. You always were dramatic." Colt stepped back, his expression hardening. "Let me know when reality sets in. Offer expires when I find someone else for the job and the perks." The door slammed between them. Nadine leaned against it, breathing hard, tears threatening at the corners of her eyes. Back at her laptop, she found herself clicking on a news link about Foxtrail's success. The article featured an interview with Mira Fox, describing her journey from waitress to successful entrepreneur. "I couldn't have done it without my business partner," the article quoted her. "He saw potential not just in the business concept, but in me as a chef and businesswoman when I couldn't see it myself. That kind of belief changes everything." Nadine stared at the words, recognition dawning. That had been Arlen's gift, seeing potential, believing in it, nurturing it with quiet, steady support. He'd done the same for her once, believing in her dreams for an art gallery of her own. Dreams she'd abandoned for the temporary satisfaction of social status, for the hollow approval of people like May and Colt. Her phone buzzed with a text notification. "May, charity gala next Thursday. Could put you on the list if you're free." Where something nice. The condescension was unmistakable. Where something nice, as if Nadine needed reminding, as if she'd show up in her sweatpants and gallery name tag. She didn't respond. Instead, she closed Instagram and opened YouTube, where she found herself typing Foxtrail Eats interview. Several results appeared. She clicked on the most recent segment from a local business program called Kentucky Entrepreneurs. The interview primarily featured Mira, discussing the business model and their commitment to serving rural communities. But at the 7-minute mark, the host asked, "Your business partner rarely appears in interviews. Is he camera shy or just mysterious by nature?" Mira laughed. "He's private, prefers to let the business speak for itself. But he's the backbone of everything we do. The strategic mind that turned a good idea into a great business." Nadine scrolled down to the comment section. The mystery man strikes again. "Anyone know who he is? My cousin says he's some kind of business consultant. Super smart, but keeps to himself. Whoever he is, he and Mira make an awesome team. Had their food last week in Boyle County. Life-changing biscuits." Nadine closed the laptop with more force than necessary. She reached for the wine, realized the bottle was empty, and tossed it toward the small kitchen trash can. It missed, breaking on the laminate floor with a sound that perfectly matched how she felt inside. Shattered. Discarded. Forgotten. The Community Business Innovation Awards was Eastern Kentucky's premier recognition for entrepreneurship and business excellence. Held annually at the Grand Rivers Convention Center, it attracted regional business leaders, aspiring entrepreneurs, and media from across the state. Arlen adjusted his cufflinks platinum, a quiet luxury as he waited backstage. The suit was new, custom-made in Louisville. Not flashy, but impeccably tailored and subtly expensive. The embodiment of success without ostentation. Nervous? Mira appeared beside him, elegant in a simple navy dress, her hair styled in loose waves. "Not nervous," he replied, "just adjusting to being in the spotlight. About time." She smiled. "You deserve this recognition as much as I do. More, maybe." The past 9 months had transformed Foxtrail Eats from a single food truck to a growing enterprise. They now operated 3 trucks serving 12 counties, had a commissary kitchen where they prepared signature items for wholesale to local markets, and had recently launched a line of bottled sauces and spice blends. The success had been covered extensively in regional media. Mira had become something of a local celebrity, the single mom who'd built a food empire serving rural communities. Arlen had maintained his behind-the-scenes role, but as the business grew, complete anonymity became impractical. Tonight would mark his first public acknowledgement of his role in the company. The Innovation Award recognized both partners equally for creating a business model that addressed food access issues in underserved areas while maintaining profitability. 5 minutes, a coordinator announced, checking her clipboard. "You'll be introduced, then walk to the podium together." 2 minutes for acceptance remarks. Mira squeezed Arlen's arm. "Ready to claim your kingdom?" He allowed himself a small smile. "Our kingdom. Well, technically, according to our partnership agreement, it's 60-40. But who's counting?" Her teasing lightened the moment. Their working relationship had evolved into genuine friendship over the months. Their success had been built on complementary strengths: her creativity and culinary talent, his strategic thinking and business acumen. From the stage came the announcer's voice. "This year's Community Business Innovation Award goes to a company that identified a problem affecting thousands of Kentucky residents and created a solution that combines social impact with sound business principles. Please welcome Mira Fox and Arlen Ridge of Foxtrail Eats." The applause was substantial as they walked onto the stage. Arlen scanned the audience: business people in formal attire, local officials, media with cameras capturing the moment. In the back, he spotted a familiar face, Nadine, partially hidden behind a column, watching. That he felt nothing. No satisfaction at her presence, no anger, no vindication. Just acknowledgement of a chapter closed. Mira spoke first, thanking their customers, staff, and the local farmers who supplied their ingredients. Then she turned, gesturing for Arlen to step forward. The microphone felt foreign under his fingers. He'd prepared remarks, but found himself setting them aside. "I was once told even the homeless had more worth than me," he said, his voice clear and steady. "I want to thank that moment. It burned me clean." A murmur rippled through the audience: confusion from most, recognition from a few who had followed the mystery partner story. Foxtrail Eats was born from 2 beliefs: that everyone deserves access to good food, and that sometimes the end of one path reveals the beginning of a better one. He glanced at Mira. "Thank you to my partner for having the talent to match her vision, to our team for their dedication, and to everyone who told us it couldn't be done. You made us prove you wrong." The applause as they left the stage was thunderous. Backstage, Mira raised an eyebrow. "That wasn't your prepared speech." "No." "Was she out there?" Arlen nodded once. "Good," Mira said simply. Later, at the reception, business cards were exchanged, congratulations offered, potential opportunities discussed. Arlen moved through the crowd with newfound ease, no longer hiding in shadows. Nadine never approached. By the time he thought to look for her again, she had gone. Morning sunlight filtered through the tall windows of Arlen's cabin, illuminating the open living space with its clean lines and natural materials. Outside, the Blue Ridge Mountains rose in misty layers, a far cry from the flatlands of Kentucky. Asheville, North Carolina had become home 8 months after receiving the Innovation Award. The expansion of Foxtrail Eats had continued now, with 5 trucks serving 18 counties across 2 states, a line of retail products and regional grocery chains, and a website that shipped their most popular items nationwide. The move had been practical as much as personal. Opening a second commissary kitchen in western North Carolina made strategic sense for their distribution network. And Arlen had wanted distance, not to run away, but to build something entirely new. The sound of laughter drifted in from the deck, where Mira and her son Eli were attempting to construct a model airplane. They were visiting for the weekend to discuss the next phase of business expansion, an education program to teach culinary skills to high school students in rural areas. Arlen poured 3 mugs of coffee and carried them outside. The mountain air was crisp despite the June sunshine, a pleasant change from Kentucky's humidity. "Any progress?" he asked, setting the mugs on the outdoor table. "If by progress you mean we've created something that bears absolutely no resemblance to an airplane, then yes, tons." Mira laughed. Eli, now 11 and growing lanky, looked up from the scattered pieces. "Mom keeps putting the wings on backward. The instructions are in like hieroglyphics," Mira protested, reaching for her coffee. Arlen studied the model pieces. "Mind if I try? Be my guest." Eli pushed the instruction sheet toward him. "I bet you get it right the first time." "Such confidence," Arlen said dryly, but he was pleased by the boy's trust. Over the past year and a half, he'd become something of an uncle figure to Eli, helping with math homework during Myra's visits, teaching him to fish, listening to his increasingly sophisticated questions about how businesses worked. As Arlen began organizing the model pieces, Mira took out her tablet. "So about this education program. I've been talking with the superintendent in McCreary County. They're very interested in a pilot partnership." "Good location," Arlen nodded. "High unemployment, limited access to post-secondary education. Students there would benefit significantly from vocational training." "Exactly. And if we structure it right, we can create a pipeline of potential employees for our expanding operations." They spent the next hour refining the concept, pausing occasionally to help Eli with the model. This was their rhythm now, work interspersed with life, business discussions that flowed naturally into personal ones. "Did you see the email from Southern Living?" Mira asked, refilling her coffee. "They want to do a feature on the house. Mountain modernism with a culinary twist, or something like that." "I saw it." Arlen attached a delicate wing strut to the model. "Not sure it's a good idea. Still maintaining your mysterious aura." She grinned. "I thought we were past that. It's not about mystery. It's about privacy." He looked out at the mountains. "This place is mine, not for public consumption." Mira studied him for a moment. "Fair enough. I'll let them know we appreciate the interest, but decline." Eli's voice broke in. "Is this the right piece?" He held up a tiny propeller. "Perfect," Arlen confirmed. As the boy returned to his work, Mira lowered her voice. "Did you hear about the gallery in Lexington?" Arlen didn't pretend not to understand a reference. "Closing, sold to new owners. Apparently your ex-wife isn't part of the deal." He nodded, but offered no comment. He maintained no contact with Nadine and had no interest in her circumstances. The information occasionally reached him through mutual acquaintances or business connections. She'd left the gallery, taken a job at a department store, moved to Cincinnati for a fresh start. None of it touched him anymore. "Arlen." Mira waited until he met her eyes. "You won. You know that, right?" He considered the question seriously. Had winning been his goal? Revenge, certainly. Recovery, definitely. But winning implied a competition, as if he and Nadine had been playing the same game. "I didn't win," he said finally. "I escaped. Built something better. There's a difference." The conversation shifted to other topics: the new sauce flavors they were developing, Eli's upcoming science camp, the hiking trail Arlen had discovered last weekend. That evening, after Mira and Eli had gone to bed in the guest rooms, Arlen stood in his living room, looking at the framed photograph on the wall. It showed an empty dining table, the chairs pushed back as if recently vacated. No people, just the negative space where they had been. He'd taken the photo himself on his last day in the Lexington house. A reminder not of what he'd lost, but of what he'd left behind. Beside it hung newer images: the first Foxtrail food truck on its opening day, the ribbon cutting at their commissary kitchen, Arlen and Mira with their innovation award, Eli proudly holding a trout he'd caught in the stream behind the cabin, at a new table surrounded by people who saw him, respected him, a table where no one laughed at another's expense. Arlen touched the frame of the empty table photo, not with regret or anger, but with acknowledgement of a lesson learned. Sometimes the thing that breaks you creates the space for something stronger to be built. That he hadn't just survived. He'd transformed. And that was worth more than any revenge could ever be.